So I just wanted to start out with giving you a little intro to Reviewer and kind of why we're hosting this webinar. So to begin, Reviewer is an applicant management software. So essentially any program where you're intaking any kind of application and then judging it or reviewing it, we can run in Reviewer. So we run things like scholarships, grant programs, award programs, different contests, competitions, call for speakers, all sorts of things like that. So we run a lot of programs here at Reviewer. And over the years, we have ran thousands of different scholarship and grant programs. So we've kind of compiled some of our best practices and things that we've seen really working in the space. And we are able to bring you this webinar, which is the modern playbook for fair and defensible corporate giving. So we are kind of giving you 5 pillars for your grants or your scholarships, whatever corporate giving program you're running. Kind of the 5 pillars to help your review slash judging process become as fair and compliant and um, equal opportunity as possible. So, with that being said, my name is Callie. I run all of our marketing here at Reviewer. So, my role in this webinar is just to kind of give you some insight into what I have been seeing based on some market research and in the space in general. And I will let Hallie introduce herself. She's here from my team.
Yeah, I'm Hallie. I'm a part of the customer success team here at Reviewer. So I work with all of our clients from the time they are onboarded into Reviewer until we're done with their event. So I help them kind of get their event accustomed and into Reviewer. I help them as they start to intake submissions, helping them organize through that, through their evaluation process with the judges, and then helping them prepare and get their next event going, close out the previous one, and get ready for next year. So I kind of see that inside perspective of the frustrations and why people are coming to Reviewer from using other platforms, systems, whatever that might be. And then also understand kind of what they're looking for and what they need a reviewer to make them have a better experience for not only them as admin, but also for their applicants and judges. So I just kind of have that inside client perspective.
Awesome. So before we get rolling here, I wanted to note that the chat is open. So any questions you have as we're kind of going along here, feel free to drop them and we'll answer as we go. So moving right in, we're going to kind of start with a little overview of today's agenda, kind of the 5 different pillars that we're going to be going through. So the first one is smarter workload distribution. So essentially, what that is just preventing fatigue and everything to do with your assignments and how you assign judges to applicants. The second thing is submission order bias and randomization. Again, this is randomizing who is judging who, things like that. The third one is how to design your rubric to be fair and consistent from judge to judge as they're going through this process. The fourth one is the redaction of data and privacy. So all about the privacy of the applicants and their sensitive information. And then the fifth one is some AI enhancements that are moving into the space and within Reviewer.
So with that, the first thing I'm kind of going to talk about is common approaches we see with the reviewer workload and then kind of the modern approach. So what we want everyone to move towards just to make a better overall experience for everyone. So first thing is going to be that all submissions are reviewed by all evaluators. At the end of the day, that's not necessary. We don't need every single evaluator to judge every single submission, and that's also really tasking on your more than likely volunteers who are taking their time to judge those submissions. With that comes evaluator fatigue. When you give judges too many submissions to evaluate, to judge, to put their time on, as they get lower, as they move on in their submission order, they're going to get that fatigue. They're not going to be giving as gracious, as good of reviews as their first few that they do. With that, if everyone reviews in the same order, it's going to be kind of static. Everyone is going to have the same top three, which means those top three submissions are going to get much better and much more fair scores than the last three in the list. Another thing is the manual tracking in spreadsheets. You as admin are tracking a lot of these information, stats, all in just manual spreadsheets, which is super time consuming and quite frankly frustrating for you all. And so at Reviewer, we have spreadsheets, we have automatic reports you guys can download whenever you need. No work to you, it's just there for you. And then evaluators not scoring on time at all. It's up to you to continue to nag on your evaluators, keep track of what they're doing, how many they've done, how many they have left. And because of that, you have to last minute make reassignments to make sure every submission is getting that same number of reviews. So, kind of some things to combat those issues is we want to limit each evaluator to only 15 to 25 applications just to kind of eliminate the possibility of that reviewer fatigue. Group-based evaluation. So instead of you manually having to assign each and every submission to its reviewer, we can do it group-based and then also randomly assigned. So the system can do it for you. Automated progress dashboard. So instead of you having to look into each individual reviewer, what they have left, we can automate and we can understand just on a quick dashboard how many of your evaluators have how many left, how far are you, kind of keeping track of that. And then balanced assignments across the team. So making it even for all your reviewers, kind of an even number. Everyone has around the same ballpark of submissions to evaluate. Logic-based scoring. So making sure that our scoring matches up with your goals, what you want out of this grant. And then also just that it makes sense for your evaluators, making sure everyone is going off the same rubric. And then automated reviewer follow-up. So if there's a chance that your judges are not getting things done, they have some incomplete evaluations, automated follow-up to make sure that they're getting on that and that takes that off your plate as an admin. So moving forward, the first thing that I kind of want to talk about with all of those items is submission order bias and randomization. So kind of covered this a little bit in the last slide, but that first application effect is real. So when you have your A to Z list, those first three, you're going to be excited. You have all that energy. You have three ready to go. And then as you kind of just move down that list, you have that end of queue fatigue. So those last few submissions really are not going to be getting a fair score like the first three. Once you kind of move down that list, it's just kind of muscle memory, repeat, skim over things, not your best effort, which nothing bad on your reviewers, your judges, but that's just kind of how it is in human nature. So with that, we have randomized queues. So every reviewer is going to see applications in a different order every time that they open up their evaluator portal. So it gives every submission that fair chance to be in that top three, top five, where you're getting that more tentative evaluation as opposed to those who maybe have the last name that starts with a Z and they are going to be at the bottom of the list every time and not receive that fair evaluation. The other thing is multiple review rounds. So instead of just one application being judged by one judge, we're going to kind of have more judges evaluate that, just so that we can see more broad who is scoring these applicants how instead of just one person. If you are a tough score, if you're an easy score, however that may be. With that, I am going to kind of give you a little bit of a demonstration of some of that judging. Awesome. So a little bit of a preview. So this is just kind of your preview of what your judging setup is a little bit going to look like. We'll go more in depth later. But one of the things I wanted to show you is how we use buckets. We use groups in reviewer. And so this is a really great way to kind of keep track of how many submissions are in each group, understanding the differences. You have a nice label so you know where everyone is. The next thing is I'm going to manage those judges. You can get a good look of what who all your judges are in, what groups they're in, if there's any judges that are not assigned into a group yet. And then down here we have that little summary of the workload distribution. So how many judges you have, submissions, and then the amount of average submissions per judge. And then this is a really helpful stat just for kind of as you're going through things, your judge to applicant ratio, just kind of something that's interesting to look at. And I think that's it for now, and then I'll show you guys a little bit more on our next slide. Perfect. Awesome. So talking a little bit about assignment models that work. And so with this, I kind of talked about the creating of the buckets. randomizing those auto distributions, um, monitoring your progress, and then completion. So your manual assignments, seeing who has control, what sees what, your batch groupings, that's that groups that I kind of talked about, and then your automated random. So making sure that we have those automated assignments so you don't manually have to do that, and that unbiased distribution. So everyone kind of has that same amount.
Oh, sorry, I was muted there. All right, now we are going to move into our third topic, which is designing a rubric that will drive consistency between judge to judge, and just as fair and honest as possible for your applicant. So just creating the best judging rubric that we can for our evaluation process. So, some of the best practices or recommendations that we can kind of give, just based on what we've seen be successful for some of our current clients, is number one, which is assigning an emotional response to a number. For example, a 4 to me might mean something different to Hallie. So if you're rating 1 through 10 or 1 through 5, and using that scale to kind of rank applicants and judge their responses for different questions, that can be really difficult. So we would recommend kind of adding an emotional response like excellent, outstanding, very good. You might have a scale 1 through 5, and then each of them are assigned an emotional response, which on the low end maybe like does not meet expectations. On the high end, meets expectations and everything in between. And then the next one is just making sure that your rubric aligns with your mission and vision of your organization, and along with the values that your organization holds. And with that being said, we also have seen a lot of success based on organization with the weight of your questions. So if you do have questions in your form that you as an organization feel are valued higher than some of the others, maybe based on kind of the mission of your organization, those you would apply more weight to. So a really important question for you guys, you might weigh as 20% of the overall score because you feel like that aligns with your organization the most. And then the next one is match scorecard to application, making sure that the questions on your scorecard are matching up with what is on your form, making it easier for your judges. And then another recommendation or just option to try out that we have is requiring justification. So this may be for every score a judge gives, or it might just be for your outliers. So say everybody scores an applicant an 8 and a judge scores them a 2. Having that judge that scored them the 2 kind of put the justification for why they scored so low or why they scored so high. So if you're able to kind of track their scores in real time, which scores they're assigning to what, you can kind of call that out and get some justification from them. And then the last one is calibration session. So this is actually working with your judges, kind of having a little session, make sure they know exactly what you guys as an organization are looking for in these applications.
Yes. So with that, we can kind of talk about the data redaction and privacy first reviews. And so this is going to be just to protect your applicants, your submitters from any unconscious bias. So whether that be something as simple as your name, or maybe if it's something organizational, company, anything kind of like that, where people are going to understand who these people are based on an address, a photo, where they work at, anything like that. We just want to protect those submitters from any bias to give them the best chance of a fair review. And then with that, kind of talking about the redaction, which we can do, and we can also use AI to help us redact. But some of the other things that AI we are working on enhancements with right now, first thing is application summaries. So these are going to be super helpful for those of you who are maybe running a longer application process. So when it comes to that first round of review, and you just kind of want to weed out maybe the applicants that don't best fit your guys' grant, or someone that maybe is not eligible but slipped past your eligibility test, anything like that. It's a great way to get a quick summary of important questions that you need to double check before you go into your real review phase. Also for you can do it for sections, certain sections. So if you just want a quick rundown of their actual applicant information, so where they're from, the school they go to, just a quick summary is going to save your judge a lot of time. With that, Callie touched on this a little bit, but the scoring normalization. So trying to kind of even out the playing fields for those who are being reviewed by a really harsh judger and then also a really easy judger. We want to make sure that we even that out because obviously everyone's going to want the easy judger. We want that higher score because typically we see that the higher score is going to be um, who's going to get that award. So finding a way to even that out, which I'll show you in just a minute, kind of what that looks like. Outlier detection. It's kind of a given that at some point you are going to have at least a couple scores throughout your process that look like they don't fit in with the rest of the evaluation. So, say my submission is scored 5 times and I score pretty low on average, and then there's one score that I am just above average, super high score, doesn't match the rest of them. That would be an outlier. We'd want to look into that and kind of understand what this score is coming from. If it was a missed if it was a mistake for it to be scored that high, kind of what that was, then that can kind of bring back in Callie's justification piece. So going back in and making those judges justify that answer they give. Maybe you included that within your actual scoring evaluation form that they had to provide that. And then from there, you can kind of decide what you're going to do with that outlier score. AI-powered deliberation. So um, it's going to give you the scores and buckets to the applicants in a conscious and variance category. So it will just make that overall process a lot more streamlined and easier for your committee. And that kind of helps you delegate where your attention is going to be focused most so you can put it where you need to and not waste your time on things that maybe don't need as much. Applicant comparisons. This is really helpful for your judges. A lot of people that we work with do kind of a system where they have your judges obviously score all the submissions they're assigned to, but then based on those submissions, please rank your top three. And so being able to compare those submissions side by side is a really great way to decide who is going to make it into that top three and who are we going to bump down. And then the last thing, which is super helpful, especially for grants when you're looking at tax forms, income statements, any of those kind of tricky documents that maybe aren't easy for the average Joe to read, it will help you kind of verify that what they're actually inserting into their submission form, the questions you're asking, matches that form that they uploaded. So whether it is that tax document, your bank statements, whatever that might be, making sure that that matches up. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to run through a little bit of those situations. First thing I'm going to show you guys is the summarization because this is a really helpful tool just for those reviewers and maybe just for you as admin if you want to go through and individually yourself weed through those applicants. The summarization is a great tool. So if we just click this button to view the summary, it's going to give us a summary of the entire application. So we can change what the summary is focusing on based on a prompt. And so whatever you tell your reviewer team member, that is what they can kind of plug in and give you the information that is most important to you. If you want that summary just for something that is more short form, so if it's say just this applicant information, you want a quick summary of what this is, it'll give you a quick little rundown of the important information in that little section. Moving over, we can talk a little bit about the document verification. So over here, we can kind of see we're looking at a submission right now. And right now we are just kind of looking at what is showing up for this submission. So for example, we have this student who maybe updated or inserted into the form their GPA, and then they also had to upload a transcript. And so right here we see that it is verified that the information they inserted into the form matches what they uploaded in that transcript. However, their credit hours, they inserted that they are currently enrolled in or completed 45 credit hours, but the actual form transcript that they uploaded was 42. Now, this could be an honest mistake, something that maybe there's something missing on the transcript, something along those lines, but it also could be something that was misled. So a really great way to um, kind of take a peek at that. And then I'm going to hop back over here because one thing that I want to just kind of hop back on that I missed was that just taking a quick peek at your group assignment. So just a quick view of what we have to offer, which is the all judges review all submissions. We can randomize set how many reviews per submission. We can allow you to still manually pair based on your judges or your submissions. And then we also can set up a judge queue to where we set up how many submissions need to be reviewed by a evaluator, and then they will appear based on that. So once each submission has received 3 scores, you kind of are done from there. One thing I wanted to change. Oops. Wanted to hop out and show you that side by side view. If I can get that pulled up. If not, I'll just let Callie move on. That's okay. We'll just let Callie move on, and then if that's something you guys are interested in seeing, I can pull that back up in a later slide.
All right, so the last thing we are going to touch on is kind of a fair selection checklist. So this is kind of a checklist to go through before um, your next scholarship or grant application season. So before your reviewing starts, here are a couple things on the checklist. Make sure that you're limiting your judges' um, evaluations to 15 to 25, making sure they don't have too many and are overwhelmed. Building rubrics, again, with an emotional based response. Running calibration sessions, make sure you have those meetings with your team. Make sure that you have any data that you want blinded, have those settings in place, especially if you're collecting sensitive data, you have that hidden from your judges. And then set up your randomized assignments. Now, during the review process, this is mainly just going to be you guys making sure that you have visibility on everything. So that's monitoring the progress daily, monitoring how many your judges have done, what they're scoring, things like that. Um, Being able to kind of catch those red flags as they're happening. Your automated reminders going out, tracking your score consistency from judge to judge, and then addressing questions promptly from your judges and also from your applicants. And then lastly, before your final decisions, make sure you're normalizing those scores, reviewing any outliers yourself or with a committee of people, if you have any score outliers within there. Document verification, making sure everything checks out that they have entered with what they have uploaded. And then preparing a defensible audit trail. So just being able to back up your process and where you get your scores from and things like that, making sure you're ready for that. And then gather reviewer feedback. So hear from your judges what they liked, what they didn't like. So that way you're able to kind of change your rubrics or your process moving forward in the next year. With that being said, thank you for coming to our webinar today.